good evening. It's Tuesday night. It's 5:30 p.m. We are now in 2026 and the N5 show is finally back. And we're going to be back with a bang tonight, guys. We're going to do a deep dive in terms of all of the Christmas and New Year fixtures. We're going to look ahead in terms of, obviously, the cup games that we've just seen in terms of the FA Cup and the League Cup semi-final games ahead. And we'll also have a look at the transfer window and some other aspects of Arsenal's game as well. But before we start and before we begin, I want to introduce you to my co-host, Jim. Good evening, Jim. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good evening, mate. All good. Happy New Year to you and yours.
And to you, mate. How was the old Christmas festivities? Obviously, you was in the Maldives. Lovely.
Yeah, no, very pleasant, mate. Yeah, very nice weather. Indian Ocean's always a joy. So no grumbles there, and very nice and relaxing, and back into the swing of things now. Kids in school and back to work and all the rest of it.
Yeah, to be honest, in some ways, I'm quite glad to be back in routine a little bit. But look, talking about routine, we're back in routine. Obviously, back on doing the M5 show. We're back now till the end of the season and beyond, hopefully. Obviously, I just want to say a big thank you to absolutely everyone who's obviously thrown their questions in tonight for the Ask Jim segment. We will obviously tuck into them a little bit later on, but we are going to start the deep dive, as I call it, in terms of obviously the Christmas and New Year fixtures. Obviously, coming out the fixtures, Jim, and coming out the show back in December, we're just obviously beaten Wolves 2-1, and we was looking ahead to an Everton game. I just obviously want to discuss that Everton game quickly with you because obviously it was a tight battle, wasn't it? A 1-0 win. And Gyökeres obviously was given a penalty, which obviously he converted, and it ended up being a match-winning result that day. What was your kind of thoughts of that game, and what was your kind of feeling in terms of obviously Gyökeres, in terms of the supply he was being given? Because up to that point, I remember the previous show that we had, there was a lot of worry, wasn't it, in terms of obviously the creativity within the team.
Yeah, look, I think it's really difficult to play against Everton, whether it's home or away. That they're so well drilled under David Moyes, and it was the first time we were visiting the new Hill Dickinson Stadium, which kudos where it's due. It looks a phenomenal football stadium, that, and a great atmosphere to boot. I felt like it was going to be a fairly tough afternoon. And they're in a pretty good slide. A mate of mine asked me at the start of the season, like, what's your kind of out there bet for this year? And I said it will be Everton to finish in the top half of the table, and I'm still standing by it. I feel if they just had a few more goals, they're a really, really, really good side. They're very hard to break down, defensively really astute, and that was the kind of day that we had there. And when the penalty fell, and Odegaard handed the ball to Gyökeres, that was, that's exactly where he wants to be, in a goal scoring position with where he can demonstrate his clinical edge, which I still to this day believe he's got an abundance of, and we still are not exerting it. But I don't know whether or not that will come into a round of conversation, Smugs, as you go on. But all in all, just before Christmas, Everton away, we're under a bit of pressure. City were coming after us a little bit. That they obviously went on to have a few more staler results after that game, but that might have been the continued pressure that we kept putting on them, because they were probably watching that game open for a result to go in their favour. So, I think you'd take a 1-0 win, and I don't care how goals go in. I was thinking about this just on one point on Gyökeres, because I remember him getting some stick on the day saying he didn't do much. All he did was score a penalty. It's like, well, penalties still need to be scored. Frank Lampard scored an abundance of them. Like, you can't take any of his Chelsea Premier League medals away from him. Alan Shearer the same. Actually being quite lethal from 12 yards is a skill. Bearing in mind we put so much onus on set pieces now. So why is a header from 3 yards out with a great delivery from Rice applauded, but if someone can convert from the spot, it's like, it's an easy goal to score? This is some of the stuff I don't understand, mate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. We've seen a lot of players step up and miss. So it's not an easy job. Do you know what I mean? And when we look at it, 19 out of 19 he's converted.
Yeah. Yeah, unbelievable. Someone had told me like he's only missed one of his last 28 penalties or something like that. Um, and like, he has out of anyone who's taken over 25 penalties, he's got like the most formidable record in Europe in the, um, with a 98 or 99% conversion rate or something ridiculous. So, at the end of the day, it was a penalty. Like we did struggle on the day to create clear-cut chances and test Pickford, and it was the only clear-cut chance we got, and he stepped up and converted it, and it was the difference between 1 and 3 points. So whether you like penalties, whether you want thunderbolts, whether you want like power in headers, I don't really care how they go in. We haven't been a scorer of beautiful goals this season anyway. No doubt we'll come on to that. I think probably only two games stick out to me, which is the game against Bruges with Madueke and Martinelli, and then the Eze hat trick. They were like really beautiful goals. I think other than that, we've just been really efficient in dead balls or attacking boxes and scoring sort of 6-8 yards out. So I don't care how they go in. I want my centre forward scoring. I want everybody to want him to be scoring. I want everyone around him to be creating, and I want us to play entertaining football and win everything. So all those things haven't changed.
No, definitely not. And obviously, we're not going to go into each game one by one, but I'm going to hold up with the Palace Carabao Cup game because we'll look at the Chelsea game a little bit later on. But we then went into a run of fixtures where we played Brighton on the 27th, which we won 2-1, which, to be fair, David Raya pulls off a world-class save to keep us with victory in that game, in my opinion. The highlight of Christmas was Aston Villa coming to town, an absolute second half blitz, which see us come out 4-1 winners, and then going away to Bournemouth, which I thought it was a disappointing performance, but yet again coming away with the result in terms of a 3-2 win, where a Declan Rice masterclass obviously got us the points, and then a miserable. A very miserable, I will say, 0-0 draw against Liverpool on Thursday night. In my opinion, I felt that a lot of the players were physically exhausted going into that second half of that game. I felt that rotation probably not being utilised as best it can be at times over the Christmas period. And I just felt that we totally lost our way in that second half. And I felt coming out of the stadium that night that it was actually 1 point gained instead of 2 points dropped, just for the fact of how poor we was in that second half. It could have been totally different. So kind of want to get your kind of understanding around them fixtures and what were your highlights, and I guess a big dialogue into that Liverpool game, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think the second half of the Villa game, the entire game wasn't perfect, but the second half of the Villa game was like chalk and cheese, and they finally went through the gears a little bit. I was obviously Rice missed that game, and I think I've mentioned to you that I felt like whether it be off air or on air, but I thought Zubimendi's been a little bit stale for the last few weeks. I think he's like the adrenaline of starting at Arsenal, and he's pretty much played every single minute of any big game we've had. I mean, look, he even came off the bench against Portsmouth when the game was dead. He's still getting off the pitch, which I don't know if I agree with, but. He had to really step up in that Aston Villa second half because we had no Rice to a knock to the knee, and I thought he was phenomenal. And that was that 45 minutes was a very standout moment for me because I felt like on that occasion we'd really felt like we'd got a player. Because when someone like Declan, who is quite irreplaceable, moves out the side. Zubimendi kind of took control because he wasn't only efficient with his defensive work. The way he got forward, popped off the shoulder, and then, Odegaard finds him, slips him through, and then almost the game gets killed off at that point with that second goal. That was just really, really good football. So I think we set a precedent in the second half of Aston Villa where we sort of played a style of football similar to about sort of 9 games earlier that we'd played against Spurs. And we were like, okay, cool. Like we've really found our rhythm again. So when we then go into the following fixture there afterwards, and we go away to Bournemouth, concede an early goal, and it's quite stale again, but somehow managed to kind of get it over the line, and it needed some. Well, the early goal to Bournemouth was obviously a shock, right? Because I think Gabriel has been our standout player for quite a long period of time, and it was just a moment of madness from him. When when you look from a technical aspect, it was just a complete blip in concentration because he scuffed the pass off his heel. He's not looked up to see whether Saliba can even receive the ball. He's just kind of had a blip in concentration and thrown his foot at it. Subsequently, football seems to do these bizarre things where they throw people a bone every so often, and 5 minutes later he was presented with an opportunity and took his goal like a striker with that half volley from a dead ball. But again, we had to rely on just two nice pieces of play, and Rice got on the end of two crosses, and we could get over the line. And yeah, they put us under pressure again. Krupi scored a phenomenal goal, if you remember, which I don't think, some people are sort of asking for Raya to do better. I know people's expectations of Raya is so high because he does things like that save in that Brighton game, but I don't think any keeper stops that one. So, look, we've spoken a bit. I don't know if this is the right time if you want to start the conversation because you're reviewing things. All in all, I have been fairly unentertained over the last, largely this season, truth be told. Yeah, there have been flashes of like really good games. It was in the stadium at Atletico. We really, really battered them off the park. I thought the first half against Burnley, we were exceptional. I thought for quite a long periods of the Newcastle game, we were really, really good. I thought the Spurs game, Spurs were poor, but I felt that we played the game really well and scored some really exciting goals. Second half at Villa, but mate, we've played nearly 30 games of football, and I can only kind of pick out like 4, 5, 6 moments, largely games with halves, not full games. And other than that, I still have a real issue with the style of football that we're perpetrating, where people kind of get so frustrated that we play against low blocks, but we do nothing to penetrate low blocks to make teams set up differently. If anything, we exemplify the fact that that's exactly how they should set up against us because we really struggle against it. And that is because the narrative around the technical football, which is such a territory-based regime, which is built off an ethos that I believe, which is a don't lose first, try and win second mindset, which is very difficult for me growing up on like someone like Arsene Wenger and then seeing disruptors in the game like an Alex Ferguson or a Jurgen Klopp or a Pep Guardiola manage football teams where the only thing I can kind of, and I need some dialogue with you, Smug, so I'm going to hand it back to you in a second, right? But like the only thing I mean, from being a fan of like all sports, Clive Woodward, who won a World Cup for England and managed the golden era of English rugby union, he was an artist in curating a team that were exemplary in its defensive duties and then often played for territory into scenarios that would create either the breakdown or the turnover, and then it would put you in a position where you could then ruck or scrummage. And I don't really want to talk about rugby on a football podcast, but like basically put you in a position where you could, because the best player on their team was Johnny Wilkinson, who was like the best goal kicker in the world of rugby at the time, just put him in the slot basically where he can be very good at what he does. And I can't stop thinking about that England rugby team when I watch Mikel Arteta's Arsenal, which I find mind-blowing, right? Because I feel like we have possession of the ball. Gabriel, Saliba, Gabriel, Saliba, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Saliba, Gabriel, Calafiori, Zubimendi, Saliba, Gabriel, Timber, right? And it's like, our two centre-halves average like between 90 and 115 touches a game. Then our two centre midfielders in the double pivot have between sort of 80 to 90 touches a game. Like someone who was reviewing Zubamendi just recently had done some analysis saying you want to see how much more impactful he has been at Arsenal. He averaged 60 touches a game at Sociedad. He averages like 88 touches a game at Arsenal. And I sit there and look at that and say, okay, cool, but you've taken those 28 touches off of Eze and Gyökeres and Saka and people that I want to be on the football because firstly, it's a bit of a blinkered statistic because I think Sociedad would be on the back foot, with all due respect, a little bit more so than an Arsenal team who are top of the league, and there's probably quite a few teams above it, so they have the possession of the football for less time. But also, I don't think a 6 should impact the game as much as that. I feel like the transition of the football should be moving much more fluidly into the front line. And we keep seeing all these stats about Gyökeres. He doesn't touch the ball enough. He doesn't get involved with the game. Like one person, like, you know, for every fan that thinks like, oh, he makes good runs, there's 100 fans that say he should drop deeper and impact the game more. Well, every time that Jesus has come on, there's no denying that he's technically more aesthetic on the eye than Gyökeres, but he's never in the box when Arsenal actually break. This is the biggest problem why everyone always said we should sign a number 9. When Madueke goes down for the penalty against Portsmouth at the weekend, Jesus isn't even in the box. When Madueke crosses that ball across that everyone was talking about in the game before, I remember I sent it to you. I said Jesus wasn't even in camera, like 25 yards out. But 2 minutes earlier, he fouls. I think it was the game we won narrowly against. No, it was Liverpool, I think. And he fouled someone 20 yards out of his own box, right? And then Szoboszlai had a free kick. So I don't, you know, everyone's trying to throw clangers at the way in which we're playing. And I feel like there's a bit of toxicity and negativity around the fan base because actually we aren't playing that attractive football. We're making winning games quite hard. Like we're not putting people to the sword at half time and managing games out. We're getting maybe a goal ahead and we're inviting pressure on, then they score a goal and then we're scrambling towards the end of a game and like just nicking another one. And I think it's connected to the amount of injuries we're having. I think the intensity that all the players have got to play at is significantly more heightened because we have to finish games in 5th gear instead of manage them at 50. You know, if you think about the start of the season, didn't have as many injuries. We battered Leeds by half time and we dealt with Forest by 60 minutes, I think, once Gyökeres had scored or whatever. And then we got games dealt with quite early, Smugs. Do you know what I mean? It's as things have progressed and moved on now, we're coming into for the last 2.5 months, we've been going into like the dying embers. Ever since Sunderland, where we drew 2-2, every single game has needed like 100% attention and 10 out of 10 awareness and effort to finish and see games out to secure the 3 points. I don't think that we can. I don't think it's healthy, and I don't think we can do that for the rest of the season and win everything if we do that.
I think some really good points raised there. Like I've just really like zoned in and listened to that because the frustration that I've had over the last 2 months is in terms of not putting games to bed. And I feel that the performance at Liverpool, especially the second half at Liverpool, has all come down to how our Christmas fixtures and results are kind of materialised. And you look at games even way before, like we've just discussed the Everton game. You look at Sunderland, as you've rightly mentioned, like how deep we went into that injury time. You look at the Wolves game, where literally 5 minutes before we conceded that goal, we literally gone so low into a low deep block. It was unbelievable, and we didn't want to touch the ball. And I see exactly the same performance for 45 minutes nearly on Thursday night. And I'll be honest with you, I was absolutely raging in that second half against Liverpool. And I don't think I was raging because of the second half performance, because I think I see this coming. I didn't think that I'd ever see us play a whole half nearly of playing that way. But I just feel that the rotation at the moment is not being utilised like it should. And when I see a player that we brought into the club who cost us £65 million and not come on for 1 minute in them 5 games prior to that Liverpool game. I'm scratching my head. Why? Actually, why is this happening? Why has this happened over a Christmas period when last season we got absolutely burnt in January because
That
all our
that
players were physically and utterly exhausted, and
so,
we're pushing ourselves down to the same situation again due to, in my eyes, management decisions.
yeah, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you there. So I agree, right? So regarding Eze, really interesting fact. I think until the Portsmouth game, he had played 200 minutes of the last 9 games since he'd scored a hat-trick against Spurs. And he started against Aston Villa, and obviously Cash got the better of him where he was caught sleeping a little bit and scored against us. And when the camera panned to the box, or sorry, to the edge of the field, you could just see Arteta was absolutely seething. Not only was Eze upset of himself, but he was seething. And it has widely been suggested, or just from reading the widespread media with an eye on it, just to see if whether or not I resonate with any of it, that Eze was signed as a Maverick style player who would be able to be incredibly efficient in low blocks, has used to been playing with physical, quick centre forwards, which obviously had Mateta before, and now we've got Gyökeres and Havertz who are both of that profile. And he could work quite well with them. He's an alternative for the left 8 plus the 10 plus the left wing, so he's quite versatile. But I honestly think that the manager still doesn't pick him, mate, because he thinks that for all of the attacking ability he has to be more efficient in his defensive duties. And I think largely the reason why Trossard's played more this season has not been because necessarily he's been better going forward. He scored a couple of clutch goals. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's a good player, but he has got significantly more efficient and effective in his defensive duties and managed his discipline a lot better. You know, we've had no red cards this season, so and I think that's largely the reason why. And um, and again, it kind of the points you've just made, which I totally agree with, but they kind of come back to me to resonate in the same ilk that we are set up to not lose games and then try and win them more so than, well, like go and win the game, see the game off, like shut the game down. I've said this to you a few times before. At 1-0, you've got edge, but a team still thinks they're in it. At 2-0, you're starting to basically take control of the game when you can see it out. And if you, as long as you don't give them an inkling, at 3-0, like both teams are just shut down, right? Both teams want to stay fit, don't go up to the highest levels, you know, X, Y, and Z. We just don't get to 3 quickly enough, or 2 quickly enough for me. And we keep giving teams and offering teams the ideology or that they can get something from us. I mean, mate, at the point we played Wolves, first and foremost, we must be the only team not to score against Wolves this season. When I say that, I mean because they conceded 2 own goals, but they were 3 minutes away from nicking a point against us. They'd only had 2 points in 17 games at that point. We're trying to win a quadruple here.
Yeah.
I mean, that at home, that for me is just like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, how can we not let the handbrake off against a team that at that point in time had the worst Premier League record in the history of the division? And that it's not Gyökeres, it's not Eze, it's not Odegaard, it's not Saka, it's not Trossard, Martinelli, Jesus, Havertz, any of them. That at that point is a cardinal issue I hold with the manager that stops him being a statue outside our ground. If I'm being honest, he has the world at his feet if he wants it. He really does. We could win everything. We could quad up this year, but I really fear that when he needs to, will he pull the plaster off and let all this talent just play football? And I'm just still not convinced he will.
Is he scared?
Because people keep saying, we're 6 points clear. What are you worried about? Mate, 2 seasons ago, yeah, we were 8 points clear with 6 games to go. This fucking season is miles away from being done. Yeah, we are not remotely close to being able to say that we're over the line yet. We bottled it in fucking April. Yes, all right, we lost Saliba and Rob Holding came in, X, Y, and Z. Yeah, but we were 8 points clear after playing 31 games. We're 6 points clear after 21. Yeah, there is a hell of a long way to go. And if you take games like Liverpool, both home and away, as a footnote, yeah, it's very easy for us to to go in our shell. And yes, I would say he is scared of losing games. I totally believe that. I think we have got enough of a catalogue of evidence in the last 2.5 seasons, so that would probably denote 100 games, that he sets us up not to lose games. Yeah.
And obviously going with that, mate, and like look for me, like I look at the fixtures like with Liverpool now, and I look at the fixtures with Liverpool 2 years ago. You know, like 2 years ago, we totally took Liverpool off a pitch in the first half. Do you know what I mean? I remember the goal they got at half time when obviously it was a big mistake at the back. But then we absolutely punished them second half. And it's like we've just totally transformed ourselves from being that team that could take on the likes of Man City and Liverpool. And look, we've proven that we can blitz them. We blitzed Man City 5-1 last year. As I said, we've done it to Liverpool before. And now we look scared of these teams. Now we look like we're scared of these. Like against Liverpool, it was like we were scared. It was like, and like we're talking about a Liverpool team here that had no Isak, no Ekatike, no Salah. And as I said to you on air, mate, and as I said to you on text, like Mo Salah plays that game, mate, on Thursday night. There's no way that game finishes 0-0. There's absolute zero way that game finishes 0-0. And I just feel that, and I've always felt this with the coaching team at times, that I feel that we're not quick enough to rectify our mistakes. Let's take Lewis Skelly, for example. Look, you're going to know what I'm going to come out with already before I come out of it. But this is a guy, yeah, right, that done a job last year for me. He done a job. But we was never in a title race last year, and we was pretty comfortable in second place all season. So it didn't really matter if he made the mistake here or there. And he made mistakes here or there last year, and it cost us points. But this is a guy, yeah, right, that got thrown on against Liverpool. And I still don't understand the decision in throwing him on. He's not in form whatsoever. He's been totally not in form. I'd say all season long. I think he obviously hasn't had a consistency of games, which he's not going to get. I don't think he's a left back whatsoever. But you're looking at a game with like 30 minutes to go, and you see Hincapié go off. You look at your bench, and you're thinking, for me, it'd have been if I was the manager, my decision would have been who's the best defender I've got on this pitch, because at the moment we are under it. We are absolutely under it here. And you've got Ben White, and you got Skelly. And I think he totally lost absolutely any mind of what decisions to make in that game. I don't know why, but I just felt that he didn't know what to do. And Ben White should have come on in that game, and Timber should have gone left back. But 100% that should have happened. And it's just the same mistakes, mate, that I see us making. And I don't really get it, and I don't understand it, because we're talking about a team, about a squad of players now that, like, actually, we've got the best squad in the Premier League. By country mile, mate, we've got the best squad in the Premier League. You look at Manchester United's bench. It's absolutely abysmal. Do you know what I mean? And we're sitting there with the likes of Ben White. We're sitting there with the likes of Eze. We're sitting there like Mikel Merino, who, yet again, in the game in that magnitude and with the conditions of the weather, I'd have been looking at Merino second half to come on that pitch and support in midfield. Because it was clear as day, yeah, right? Liverpool had literally over-dominated us in terms of midfield presence in that second half. But there was nothing made. And then when we did make the substitutions, we made them in the 78th minute. And for me, with that performance, it gave me big worry, mate. It does give me big worry that are we gonna see this through? And I didn't feel like that prior to this game, if I'm being totally honest with you. But what I see in that second half performance and the reaction from the bench in terms of not being proactive and not making the right decisions, right? like you said, this league title is nowhere near over with, right? Because we've still got to go to Man City away, yeah, right? And then you're looking at potentially Man City losing one less game than us, and that could win the title. Because if we're being frankly honest at the moment, mate, if it goes down to goal difference, I don't see us winning it. I don't see us winning it because we're not, even though we're tied with them at the moment, they're more likely to score goals than we're likely to score goals because of the way they're set up. So it
Well,
is
yeah,
a
and
knife edge.
they've added Semenyo obviously since this run of games, and that was another thing that I saw when you're asking for just an analysis over this side of the matter. This is where I think Pep just has a very different mindset where he is always in forward gear and drive. And I wonder whether or not Arteta is in a forward gear, but I just think he's one of those people who drives a manual car and they just forget to release the handbrake all the way down. So the car just drags a little bit, but still moves forward. It's the best way I can kind of describe it. And the reason I say that is he buys Semenyo on a Tuesday and he hustles him into a FA Cup team against Exeter 2 or 3 days later without maybe one training session under his belt. None of the players know him, but to all their credit and full respect, Exeter are 16th in League One at Man City. He names a pretty strong side, sticks Haaland in. Rodri captains the team. Reinders plays. It doesn't. I mean, Trafford's a 30 million quid goalkeeper. It doesn't really matter who plays in the back five. He's trying to put a job on, but he gives Semenyo like the easiest platform to bed into life at Man City because there's no. I mean, they score 10 goals for Christ's sakes, right? And he gets a goal and assist, and I think he sort of semi gets another assist that ended up being an own goal or somewhat or whatever. But it's the easy. Do you know what I mean? All the pressure comes off the player because people who are like, oh, Jokeres hasn't scored in 18 or, or however many games in open play. I mean, he actually scored against Everton only, 3 weeks ago. It was a deciding goal. But the point I'm making is that wouldn't that game against Portsmouth when we went like 3-1 up at half time and the game really opened up and they were like trying to get in. So it's like the most open game we've seen in regards to like the chance creation. Would that not have just been the perfect opportunity to put your expensive number 9 into a game and like get him a goal? Because I don't think anyone's turning around saying, "Oh, it's only Exeter Semenyo scored against." Everyone's saying, "Christ, I'm so scared now." They've got Semenyo and Haaland and Reinders and Foden, and it has the impact that they would have wanted. On top of the fact that the player is like, "I've got to go and assist on my debut," and
It,
I just think with things like that, mate, with man
mm,
management, there
it
is a
is.
naivety and an adolescence around the way in which something so obvious. I mean, Jesus got his 55 minutes or whatever it was. You know, you could have brought Havertz on still, and he could have played in the 10, and he could have played with Jokeres, and you could have just let him have half an hour altogether. You didn't like, I mean, mate, if it was me, as crazy as it would sound, I want my number 9 scoring every single week. I think if my number 9 scoring every single week, we will win every single title. Like, you know, when Madueke went down, I'd have fucking brought him on for the penalty. To be honest, and but like he is so short of confidence at the moment, and he is. I've never known a player who is in a team that are top of the Premier League, the first team to automatically qualify for the knockouts of the most prestigious European competition, in a semi-final of a League Cup, and still in the FA Cup, and a player and a new signing who's scored 7 goals. It's not like he scored none. Has scored 7 goals, and he's the most talked about footballer in all of England. Everything, even when he doesn't play, he's talked about, and his own fan base are after him, and and all the media are just lapping it up. And I would there would just be no way that all the staff around Arteta wouldn't be telling him this. And look, he looks happy in training. He's smiling. He's on the bench. He was talking to Nicola Jova. He's looking at different bits of movement and X, Y, and Z. And maybe they're all calm. But I'm just talking from a bit of an experience that I would want to put a goal in him pretty quickly. By the way, on top of all those things, right, and you talk about uplifting things, when we signed him, the hysteria around this player, purely off the basis that he's got a really gimmicky and kind of very effective celebration, lifts an entire crowd. You see kids when the camera angle, I don't know if you saw it on TNT at the weekend, he wasn't even in a team, but when the camera angle pans around, all the kids put the mask on and everything like that. I think that if you were concerned about the team and you wanted to change the ethos and the atmosphere amongst the fan base, he would be the smartest person to put a goal into, because he goes and puts the mask on. All the kids put their mask on. Remember, Smugs, as well, we're talking about a player in Gyökeres. This is what I mean about how quickly a fan base can change. In the summer, Gyökeres set a new club record for the most shirt sales in the first 24 hours in the Armoury. Like, and if you actually deep that out of the players that we've signed in recent years, that is a monumental stat. And now we're just in January, and I see people saying that we should put him on the market now, or see if we can sell him, or like, can we get our money back, or send him back to Portugal, or just flog him for 40 mil, take a bit of a loss, and see if Watkins is available. Like, I don't understand it, mate. But what this all resonates to me is that we haven't adapted our style of football to utilise the number 9 that we've signed, and we're crying out for Jesus and Havertz to come back, who've both been injured for a year, which we won fuck all with as the number 9 anyway. For as good as both the players are, I'm not a massive fan of Jesus. I know you like him. He's very easy on the eye technically. For me, positionally and clinically in front of goal, he is not it. His best season ever as a goal scorer is 14. He scored 75 goals in the Premier League. This is his 10th season in the Prem. It is just not good enough. Yeah, I'm sorry. Nice looking footballer. Do I think he could do a job on the left wing? Quite possibly. But playing through the middle, his card is run in the Premier League, whether it be for Arsenal or for anyone else. Havertz, I have a totally different aura around. I think he is. I mean, I love German footballers. He reminds me a lot of Özil. His football IQ is super high. He's incredibly gifted on the ball. He glides around the pitch. He looks to me like someone who just sees the game a second or two quicker than everyone else on the pitch. I think he could be like a Berbatov or a Bergkamp-esque. I think his best position will be a shadow striker, Smugs. I don't know what you think about Havertz, but like, I don't think he is an out-and-out number 9, but I think when he is just in the pocket and he can influence the game in and around the 10s and the 9.5, he would love to have someone who plays on the shoulder and just drop the ball in behind to him. But you know, that would be a formation change, and that would probably require a break of a double pivot. And I don't think Arteta will ever break the mold of a back 5 and 2 6s, more so than go into a back 5, a 6 and 2 8s. So it still all comes back to Arteta for me.
Yeah, I just obviously taking a dialogue with that. In terms of Havertz, I was very, very disappointed that he didn't bring him on like in an attacking midfield role on Sunday. I've been totally honest. I don't really get why he needed to bring Odegaard on. Why did he need to bring him on? He didn't need to bring him on whatsoever. Mine Odegaard in that last 10, 15 minutes. If anyone needed to come on in a 4-1 lead, it would have been Gyökeres to try and get a goal. And I hear all this talk that apparently in the summer there was a lot of training with Havertz playing in more of a attacking midfield role and pushing right up in training alongside Gyökeres, and it's something that I want to see. Do I think I'm going to see it much? I actually really don't think I am going to see it much, if I'm being totally honest. I think they're both fighting out for that number 9 shirt, and I really like Havertz, but we got to remember, and we got to really remember clearly, that a lot of fans wanted Havertz at the team last season. So it's quite short memory scope with people,
Yeah,
in terms of what they see. But what I see and what I saw with Havertz when he comes on, look, he is going to be a big player for the second half of the season. I do think he's going to be a massive player for us when we get going into March, April, May, and he is going to be 100% needed. In terms of Jesus, I just think he's an impact player. If I'm being totally honest, he can play across the front line. The only thing I'd say about Jesus that I do think that he's probably a little bit better than a couple of the other players is that his final ball, and I think we see that the other day. I know it's only Portsmouth, but what an incredible pass that was to Martinelli to tap home. And imagine if Trossard, imagine if Gyökeres had that, he would have been waiting in that kind of position. And he must be sitting there scratching his head.
Look, if you want to go on to the technicalities, I've done so much research on this, mate. That is exactly the position that Gyökeres has been taking up, that people have been blasphemizing him about. He has been taking up the position between the last fullback and the centre half and trying to play on the shoulder. You know, it's also a chore as a centre forward, from playing with quite a few decent ones, to keep yourself onside all the time, because you get a defensive line that shuffles and shuffles and shuffles. You've got to move your footwork back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and there's no margin for error now to the naked eye. It will just go to VAR. So you've got to be even more sensitive around it. So, you know, the position that Martinelli takes up there is a very Gyökeres-esque position, but the difference being is that right-hand side is normally so convoluted with left foot dominant footballers that the ball does not come like that, which is angled in towards the goalkeeper and then arched away, almost like a draw. If you imagine a golf shot, right? Like an outswinger, if you're a cricketer. Yeah. So the ball goes towards keeper can't come, and then it arches back towards the attacking play, right into the path. And Martinelli's the first one to react. But that is the ball that I think Gyökeres is more used to, which is having a natural footed winger on the wing that they're playing on. So a right on a right and a left on a left. Obviously, Arteta's thing really is to play with inverted wingers, and he likes to utilize the touchline, then come inside and play on the apex, right? So you get to the apex of the box and you hit that diagonal ball. So it's a different style. But yeah, I mean, it's a quick ball from Lewis Skelly. Probably the only good thing he did in that game, you know, with all due respect. And then Jesus gets his head up, and it is incredibly clinical as a pass. You're not wrong. But again, he's on the pitch as a number 9, Jesus. Why is he playing that pass? I don't really care. It's a great goal. But yeah, it is. I'm getting frustrated because I don't understand why we've signed a number 9 to make an example of him. It makes absolutely no sense to me. And this whole narrative around, Arteta wanted Sesko, he didn't want Gyökeres, so he's not using him properly because he didn't get the player he wanted. It's just nonsense. I'm not having any of it. There's no way that he can have that much pull at the football club where he can just make a mockery of a 65 million quid asset because he didn't want him in the first place, right? And 2, if you actually listen to him talk about him in his interviews, in his very first interviews, like when I had my first phone call with Victor, etc., you know, there's none of that. So yes, they did a lot of data on Sesko, but I don't think the scenario, and I have been bringing this to you, and I can't really get off this number 9 issue because I think it will be season defining for us. If we find a way of getting goals into our number 9s, I think we might win it all. I really, really believe that. And you know, a number 9. This is the most important thing for me, is that this is not the number 9 position. This is not a Gyökeres issue. This is a significantly wider issue. Like, actually, from a data perspective, the only one that you can use as a collective that has played for the football club and for multiple managers is Aubameyang. And under Arteta, Aubameyang has 26 goals in 62 games. Under Emery and Wenger, he has 42 in 67. So in 5 more games, he has 16 more goals. So that shows like a complete mismatch in regards to utilisation. And obviously within the Wenger period, you know, he signed for the club. So his bedding in period, he scored 10 in his first 14, and then Wenger leaves in the May, right? But he scored 10 league goals in 14 games. We didn't even have a player score 9. We didn't even have a player score 10 league goals all season last year. So, and then, Lacazette was about 1 in 3.5. Nketiah was 18 in 105. Jesus is 25 in 77. Havertz has probably got the best record, which I think is about 26 in 61 or something like that, similar to his Aubameyang's record. And then sort of Saka, Trossard, Martinelli, all about 1 in 4. Saka was maybe the best output, 57 in 210 or something like that. So there's no identifiable goal scorer there, Smugs, within the time frame. And whenever we've been elite before, we've always had someone who goes and scores 20 plus goals. Sanchez was the first, Alexis Sanchez, mate, scored 1 in 2 for Arsenal. It was ridiculous. His goal output. The 25 and a 30 goal season at Arsenal. Before that, Van Persie, Adebayor even had a 25 goal season, I think, before we sold him to City. Then, obviously, Henry's record talks for itself. And then I went back and looked even further. And then everyone used to turn around and tell us, when you and I were kids, that it was boring Arsenal under George Graham. Well, like the worst season he had was Alan Smith when he had an injury-riddled season at 14. But other than that, Alan Smith scored 22 plus goals every single season. And when Alan Smith left, Ian Wright come in and he had a 25, a 35, a 30. Do you know what I mean? So he had a striker scoring 25 plus goals every season under George Graham when it was like famous 1-0 to the Arsenal. So I don't, we either change as a fan base and we have really low expectations on who the number 9 is, and we just kind of let all these narratives around occupying centre backs and playing and just winning games is all that matters. Yeah. Or we have to demand more from our creative play. And there is an expectation that, our open play goals have dried up a little bit and we should be scoring more from open play, and we should be less predictable and more diverse in our attacking play. I don't know, mate. I've said a lot this evening on this, and it's continuing to play havoc on my brain. What do you think on it all?
My personal opinion is I think when Havertz fit, he plays at the moment. And it might, do you know what, right? It might actually support Gyökeres at the start of this process, because actually it might help him coming on when games are kind of expanding, if you know what I mean. And hopefully some games he comes on when Arsenal, I don't know, just say we're winning 2-0 against someone at home, and then he comes on and grabs a couple of late goals himself and gets confidence that way. I do believe if Havertz was fully fit at the start of the season, that he would have started as the number 9, and I think it'd have eased Gyökeres in as such. And I feel that because he didn't have that, he had a lot of pressure on him straight away. But I'm still very much in the camp here, right, that I don't feel that the creativity is nowhere near the level it needs to be to kind of get this guy to be scoring 20 to 25 goal season. Of course, he needs to do a little bit more. Like probably everyone needs to do a little bit more. But when I see like players like Saka, Madueke, Trossard hit the byline, Martinelli, they hit the byline so many times, and then they pick the wrong pass, or they don't beat the first man. It's so frustrating. And that's what's some of the most frustrating thing about it, is that we are getting beyond the fullback. We are getting onto the byline. It's always the final pass. And for me, Odegaard, he needs to do more consistently on a consistent level. Yes, he can look an absolute fabulous player and on the ball, and on the eye sometimes he can look the man. Do you know what I mean? But for me, he's not consistent enough. And I feel at times, yeah, right, he shirks out quite a bit as well in that midfield. And he's really disappointed me a few times. I thought he was lucky to stay on 90 minutes even in the Aston Villa game, just because I thought at 3-0 up, I thought rotation could be key here. They could bring Eze on. So I thought, I don't really understand why we're playing 90 minutes. But I feel like with Odegaard at the moment, I'm seeing a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde performance as such. And he needs to do a lot more. And there's that little piece in me that would like to see Havertz play that role in certain games, and see how that would support the team. Because if you've got Subamendi and Declan Rice playing as the pivot too, you don't necessarily need Havertz. Like, in that midfield all the time. Do you know what I mean? Especially at home, you can push him right up alongside Gyökeres. And I look at that and I think there could be so much danger with them two up front. And the centre backs wouldn't know what to do, because at the moment, when we're playing games, like you look at the Liverpool game, for example, what does anyone expect Gyökeres to do? He's literally got no one with him. He's trying to play off Van Dijk and Konate, which obviously we know are two physical centre backs who relish a battle all day long. I'm not really sure what we actually want from him, because if we're not getting players close enough to him to kind of get him on the ball and get him playing 1-2s and that kind of stuff, he's just isolated. He looks so isolated; it's unbelievable. And then you'll see him running down the flank once or twice, trying to obviously win the ball and all that. There's no one near him, mate. There's absolutely no one near him, and it's so frustrating to see, because for him, he must be so frustrated at the moment, so frustrated that he's come from a club in Portugal that we know is not the level of the Premier League, but at the same time, he was banging in 50 goals last season. End of. Period. He knows where the back of the net is. As I said to you, I watched him in warm up. Every ball, it's the back of the net. Every single ball, it's the back of the net without foul. Then you get him into the game, and there's just absolute nothing. There's no creativity whatsoever. And I think, mate, at home, we need to change our stance. And I've even said to you, I don't believe we need Zubimendi and Rice to play at the Emirates. I really, really don't. I really don't at times. I want to see in some games Declan Rice sitting in the number 6 chair, right? And having players like, I don't know, Havertz, Odegaard, or Odegaard, Eze, or do you know what I mean? Havertz, Eze. I want to see in players pushing up, mate, because there's no way, right? You could be telling me teams like Wolverhampton would handle that. They couldn't handle it. And we're that good, and we know as well, right? Declan Rice will run every blade of grass. He did it for literally 6 months when he first signed for this club. He was literally playing centre midfield on his own. So I don't really get why we have to play Zubimendi and Rice against a team like Wolverhampton. Yet again, I think the manager can do better there. I think the manager he's got to take the shackles off himself.
Yes.
I'll tell you what the interesting thing for me, Jim, and I'll go back to that Wolves game. He was going absolutely mad, right? How deep we dropped in the last 5 minutes. And I'm sitting there and I was scratching my head at the time and I'm thinking, well, if it's not you doing it, why are they doing it? Do you know what I mean? But it doesn't get rectified. And we get to the Liverpool game and exactly the same thing happens again. And I feel, right, at the moment, right, he's afraid of losing a game is now stemming on the team. And you can see in their play, and you can see against Liverpool, all they were worried about was not losing that game. And he hit it on the point after the game. He goes, if you can't win the game, don't lose the game. And do you know what? I bet he said that to them at half-time. I bet he said to them at half-time, if we ain't going to win this game, make sure we don't lose this game. And in their mindset at that point is, do you know what? We just got to make sure we don't lose this game.
Well, every single game we've dropped points in, they look like they have embodied that mindset. So we lost to Liverpool in the third game of the season, and we didn't really have a go at them once. Do you know what I mean? Madueke had one half-hearted shot on the edge of the box from a corner, but it was pretty easy for Alisson, right? Other than that, we didn't have a shot on target. Yeah. Against Sunderland, we were 2-1 up, and we tried everything for our lives to defend a lead, and then we invited them, who all they had the entire game was physicality and a bit of dead ball presence. Yet we let them walk into our half and muscle it out for a corner and come into and be allowed to do the only thing that we shouldn't have wanted them to do. If we'd have played the game in their half and retained the football and played with a bit of composure, then we'd have won that game. Yeah. Villa at home. Once we went 1-0 down, got back to 1-1, and we absolutely had them on toast in that game, after Trossard scored. I think it was Trossard. And then we had a couple of good chances, and all of a sudden it was 60 minutes, and we just completely backed off out of nowhere, and they just went ham and egg. And we're like, don't lose the game, don't lose the game, don't lose the game. And we ended up we just retreated, same against City. I don't really think we put it on them, and we're lucky to get a goal and draw the game. And then against Wolves, you know, it was the same again. We're 1-0 up, and we just like retreated. And I don't understand it. Like, because also, Smugs, I've mentioned this to you definitely off air a few more times, right? I don't understand how we look really uncomposed as a technical football side in the last 5-10 minutes of just about every game that we play. Like, they're like, when Gyökeres is on the pitch, they're like, he must get so frustrated because he's like, oh look, they're attacking us now, they've opened themselves up, there's a chance of a counter. If we recycle the ball, just an element of composure where you put the ball into, you guide the ball, or you caress the ball like into a channel, or you clip it into space. Like, mate, when they get the ball on the edge of the box, they're just all swinging their legs at it, mate. The ball goes up in the air, they're slicing it, they miss contact with it, headers go in the wrong direction. It's like proper Sunday league stuff for little periods of time when you watch it.
Yeah.
And you think, Christ alive, like, this is embarrassing. Watching how frantic they are to try and get rid of the ball. And that is exactly what happened at Villa, I think, when we lost 2-1. There was like the ball dropped to us like 3 times. And I think that players like actually sort of swung and missed or scuffed the ball like 3 times instead of like just someone just get, I remember back in the day, mate, Cazorla was the best at it. Do you remember on the edge of his own box? Cazorla would just like take a breath. He'd get the ball out of his feet and he'd just go right foot, left foot, right foot. And he'd carry the ball 20-25 yards and he'd buy a foul, or he'd just do something to just change the onus back to us. And he would, you know what I mean? And you're just looking for a little bit of that composure. And Odegaard don't do that. I think Eze might be someone who could probably do with that. I mean, it's difficult to get really good ball travellers in today's day and age. They don't exist anymore. Wilshere used to do it quite well as well. Grealish is really good at it, buying fouls and like having possession of the football and winning possession and territory back. But like we lose a lot of our composure, and I think. I actually think we probably would have been in a really strong position to be miles clear of this league. I think City they've had 2 ruts now. There's every chance that they might have a third, but then also it would be pretty rare if they did. And they've gone and added Semenyo now. And I'm not convinced that in the next 17 days they won't do a bit more business. I do think this Mark Gay thing will like properly warm up in the last 7 to 10 days. And my gut tells me that if Palace think they're safe, they might prefer 35 or 40 million quid now than nothing in the summer. So a lot of it will come down to whether the player is like promised some like massive signing on terms or not, But yeah, so I'm not sure, mate. I still think there's a lot to improve on, but I can't overlook the fact that we are top of the league, and we are doing, we're doing quite well to this point. But there's some highlights in the performances that for me just. They need to change, and like we are, the pressure is only going to mount more now. Like the intensity around every single game just gets a little bit higher now. Like we can't. How are we going to go into Chelsea tomorrow when it's a semi-final of a League Cup? And now it's like it's real pressure again. You haven't won a trophy in 6 years. Like, are you going to go and? Are you going to keep this clinical edge that you've had for the last 6 months, or are you going to, or are you going to, bottle it and shit your pants a bit, and it's on a knife's edge.
Do you know what? I think it's a really, really interesting season because I know we've had a bit of a dialogue in terms of obviously a rant tonight about certain aspects. But do you know what? It's such a weird season, right? That actually. That nothing would surprise me, like whether in the next few weeks that we could be 9 points clear as well, and that's how weird this season is. But I think the frustration from like obviously ourselves is more around we know the capability of these players and how this team could perform, and it does. It's really frustrated me. Yeah, right. The amount of occasions now that we've gone to Man City or Liverpool and said, "Look, this is the time we're going to do them," and we don't. We just don't. Do you know what I
I
mean?
think I think because you and I, Smugs, are in the minority where we talk about the manager a lot and we put the pressure on him because it's how we were brought up in the game. But I think the fan base now are almost kind of perverse in regards to Arteta's Arsenal. And some of them generally are desperate for him to do it as well as Arsenal do it. And for me, I just care about the football club. And it shouldn't really, you know, we put so much onus on the players, but like for me, it's all on the manager. Like it's not. This isn't Eze or Gyökeres or Havertz or Saka's or Rice's last season at Arsenal. Like, but this should be, like, in my opinion, this should be Arteta's last season at Arsenal. You know, he's had 50 million quid in wages in the 6 years that he's been at Arsenal, maybe more, might be 60. And he's won one FA Cup with a squad that he is, bar Saka, has actually completely sold or released from the football club. So, and Saka didn't even start that final in 2020. So, this is not like this is an entire rebuild now, and we've sold no one of any clout bar Nketiah and Balogun in that time frame. Other than that, like no one has been sold for any real money, and I think we've spent like 950 million quid or something like that. Might be a billion. I think Hincapi, because it's an obligation, takes over $1 billion, and he has to win a major honour this year. So all of the pressure for me has to lie with the gaffer. You know, it's very difficult to blame Gyökeres or Havertz or Jesus, who've come back from year-long out injuries, or a striker who's been at the football club for like 6 months, when is 6 years into Arteta's project. You know, he's even gone through sporting directors. He's like the only last guard, mate. If you think about it, Carlos Cuesta's been and gone. Mertesacker's now, like, he's been his academy director the whole time. He's now leaving. Edu's left. He's got Berta in. The only people, Vinay Venkateshian's gone. Got a new got a new managing director. So the only person in Arsenal who stayed throughout that entire reign is the Cronkies and Arteta.
And look, like it's the other way to look at it, isn't it? Like I just talk about a massive, massive game tomorrow night. For me, we have to win the League Cup. And that I'm not saying that because I want a trophy in the door, because obviously I do want a trophy in the door, but I just think the momentum from that going on to the rest of the season, and like especially what happened with Newcastle last year, we need performances with it. And this is it's another game where you look at it and think, are you going to go there and get the job done? Are you going to go there and make a statement? And so far this season, we haven't really gone to any of the big stadiums and made any sort of statement. Yeah, we've beaten the likes of Bournemouth, do you know what I mean? And the likes of like Newcastle, which was a good result. That's probably our top result of the season, winning Newcastle. But we haven't gone to any stadium and won comfortably, have we? We haven't gone there and dictated and come away sitting there thinking, do you know what? That is a massive statement and intent. And tomorrow's night is another night to go out there and make that intent. Make that statement. Do you know what I mean? Just go there and beat them on their own patch, but beat them with a statement performance. And I think that's what we need. I think that's what the club needs. I think that's what Arteta needs, and I think that's what the players definitely need to kind of feel that they're going to do something. I still get this feeling with them that they're not sure. I just feel that they're not sure. When it gets to those crunch games, when people are talking about, we could go 8 points clear, the performances just drop. And it's like the pressure's just too high for them. And this is another performance tomorrow night where they can go out there and lay it on the line. And they need to lay it on the line tomorrow night. And look, there's 2 bites at the cherry, and we don't necessarily need to go there and win. But I feel for the team, I feel they do need to go there and win tomorrow night, mate. I feel they do need to go there and beat them. Because let's be honest, this ain't a Chelsea team that's banging form. This is a Chelsea team that got a new manager who's just walked in. Do you know what I mean? They've only won 1 game out of 12, and probably their best performance was against Arsenal. And they started, obviously, they were down to 10 men, and they didn't win the game, and they drew 1-1. But This ain't a team that's in banging form, do you know what I mean, whatsoever. But I don't want to go there like we went to Chelsea in November and look scared to play football. Like, I want us to go there and act like champions. And I think this is the word now, is we need to start acting like champions if we want to be champions. We need to go to grounds and be and take teams on the pitch. If teams are coming to the Emirates, we need to make it that fortress again, because as Andrew said in the chat, and I do agree with him, and I totally agree with him, we look more worried at home. Our poor performances are at home. And surprisingly, right, I always think that we look better when we go 1-0 down, because actually we realise then that we need to go out and score a goal and get back in the game. So, mate, we didn't start playing until we went 1-0 down. Against Bournemouth, we didn't start playing until we went 1-0 down. But
no, mate, I agree.
No one can live with us.
I got off the back of that, because that was really interesting. I've got 2 questions for you. All right. First one is, in response to your point about we need to start behaving like champions if we want to be like champions. Yeah, sorry. We need to start behaving like champions if we want to be champions.
Yeah.
Who in the team do you think is behaving like a champion, and who?
Do you know what? Right, I've been watching Declan Rice here, right, and mate, I don't think he's. I think that, like, he's obviously had a few injuries, but I look at body language. I said to you as well. I don't think he's happy at the moment, and I'm not saying he's not happy that he wants to leave the club whatsoever. But I think he knows, right, that we should be doing much better than we're doing. Do you know what I mean? He's definitely someone who behaves like a champion. For me, I've said it all the time. I think he should be captain. I honestly think he should be captain of this club. My personal opinion. That doesn't mean that I'm bad-mouthing Odegaard. I just feel that Declan Rice should be the captain of this team. I think Gabriel is an absolute colossal. I think when he's not in the team, mate, like what we see what the team was like, it misses so much out of it. So I think him. And I haven't brought it up yet, and I will bring it up, and we have discussed it, me and you, off air, but what the hell was Mikel Mourinho captain before Gabriel on Sunday? Like, what the hell is going on? Like, Gabriel is everything that will be picked in that team when everyone's fit. He's one of the first names on the team sheet. He's been captain loads of times when players have been absent. How's Mikel Mourinho got that captaincy before him on Sunday?
Yeah, I don't. You messaged this to me at the time, and I hadn't even clocked it, and it was the whole thing baffles me, and it does kind of make me think more about, is this just another Arteta, one of his games, and in his kind of cynicism about showing everyone that I'm the boss, because I brought up other points, like everyone said Dalman should be the one to break the Premier League record for scoring, and he's this wonder kid from England, and he should break the Champions League appearance record, and he ends up doing it, but he does it with Marley Salmon, and he breaks the record for youngest player ever in the Champions League, and I just feel like, sometimes you can't help but think that he does these things for attention, or he does these things like to catch other people out. Andrew agreed with you, mate. The minute I said it, he said Gabriel, and I agree. I think there's 3 players that play like champions, that exert themselves in the big moments and also carry an aura around them, which is like, we will not be beaten today. Yeah, you've mentioned Rice. I don't think he's angry. I don't think he's fully fit, mate. And I think he's probably playing on injections for his knee. And I think he is sort of probably getting frustrated because he's like, I'm putting my body on the line. The rest of you fuckers need to, like, just up your game a bit, yeah? Gabriel, 100%. Every single time in both boxes, he occupies himself. He is just a warrior. He just will not be knocked down. And I think he possesses a champion's mindset, and actually, for me, I think he is the most like the very first captain I remember at the Arsenal was Tony Adams, and I like it being a centre back. I think he leads the back, but I also think he might do things in more memorable moments about scoring goals with headers from corners and things like that. And I think he is a leader of men, and I think I do believe that he would be a phenomenal captain. And the last one for me is David Raya. I think David Raya comes under some stick for some whatever reason because other people liked Ramsdale. It was that for me is by shadow of a doubt the best decision Mikel Arteta has made in his 6.5 year tenure, replacing Ramsdale with Raya. That was a
Yeah,
complete success story, and largely on the main, Raya's distribution is very, very good. He's incredibly comfortable with the football, but he just keeps picking out these moments in games where we need him, and he makes saves, mate, that I can't even really remember anyone until Seaman days making. I don't have a memory of a formidable save that Lehman used to make. I just remember Lehman being so commanding and psychotic as a goalkeeper, and was a really good presence. But Seaman used. Do you remember Seaman? Seaman made mental like the double save in the FA Cup final against Liverpool, and where he clawed it back, from the line. Seaman had like a catalogue of like just mental saves. I think Raya, in the time he's been at Arsenal, like 3-4 years, and also, mate, yeah, not forgetting. I think if he wins it this year, it might be the first keeper to win Golden Gloves 3 years in a row or something. I don't know. Someone told me that if that's true or not, but you pulled it out, mate. And I remember when you called me after the game, you said, mate, that watching that Raya save against Brighton might be one of the best things I've ever seen live at the Emirates. Do you know what I mean? So
mm,
he has moments like that. Andrew's listening. I know he's listening with intent. He's sort of Saka, question mark, question mark, question mark. No, Andrew. He would be one of the players now that I would highlight who I think should behave like a champion and hasn't. So, and I have actually, if I was going to have a special mention of a fourth person as a champion, would be Timber. I probably think he has the right attitude in games, but not on the same level as the other three. The people that I expect should and haven't is Saka and Odegaard. So I don't think Odegaard exerts himself on the football pitch like a proper captain. Don't get me wrong, I think he works hard and he presses well, and all that stuff's quite cute. But never in my life I seen an Arsenal captain dangle his foot in the last second of a game where he could make a tackle, put his body on the line, and Aston Villa score. Like Adams, Campbell, Vieira, Fabregas. Like Fabregas scored a brace of a broken foot, took a penalty against Barcelona with a broken foot. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not in the character. I don't know if it's a modern day thing, Smugs, but he doesn't do that as a captain, you know. And Cesc was a Spaniard coming from Barcelona's academy. You know, he didn't owe anything to Arsenal, so he didn't need to do that. So and Saka, I think, has had I've said this to you, and you're talking. I want to get on this Marino thing. I think, mate, I think Saka's had a really poor season. They've chosen a Liverpool game to announce what I'd told you. I'd been told that he'd signed a new contract. I have been told his contract makes him the highest paid player in Arsenal's history, as well. It's just over 300 grand a week, and um, and I don't think this has been a good season for Saka by any accounts. I think he's been indecisive on the ball. I think he has had more time one on one with his fullback than any season in the last three, and hasn't been really clinical with it. I think his dead ball delivery's been fine, but his open play game his decision making's been poor. It's been selfish. It's been rash, and I think in large spells when Madueke's played right wing, he's outshone Saka in regards to like the explosivity of a winger as to how they kind of deal with their fullback. I think if Madueke was more clinical in his end product, there would be like a lot of pressure on Saka to come out the side. I really mean that. I don't know what you think about that, because we do want to have a chat about this Merino thing, but I I do wonder, mate. The only thing I can think of to rationalise your point around Merino being captain is he never expected Gabriel to finish the game. He was always trying to take him out of the game. He was just using it as minutes. That's the only thing I can think of, because the whole thing is very bizarre. I didn't even know that Merino was somebody that had been perceived in this abbreviated commas leadership team. I thought it was Odegaard, Saka, Rice, and Gabriel. So I don't know where this Merino thing comes from.
Yeah, it completely baffled me. Like I don't like Gabriel's on the pitch and he starts the game for me. He's captain of that team that went out on Sunday all day long. I think with Saka, I totally agree with you, mate. So I think Saka's been chasing glory too much this season, if I've been frankly honest. I think at times when he's needed to be more composed and make the right decisions, he hasn't, and there's been a bit more about self-glory. I felt that actually when Saka returned from his last injury, and like, look, he had a really good game at home against Real Madrid and won a couple of free kicks. And when he went away, I just look, unbelievable goal he scored, by the way. But when he took that penalty, I think it's all started from there. Like that weren't Bukayo Saka 2-3 years ago. This is a Saka now that is obviously sitting there thinking to himself, I need to be on the world stage as one of the best players in the world. And obviously he made a decision at the Bernabeu, which was the wrong one, to try and chip the keeper, which was a ridiculous thing to do in terms of where the game was at the time. And luckily, obviously, we didn't get punished for it, and he was able to kind of score in that game. But I just felt ever since that game, mate, that I just felt that there's a much more kind of individual sense of mindset with Saka. I just feel that he's not doing the things that he was doing before. Like he used to whip in some incredible balls, mate. I remember Havertz being in the end of some loads of his balls, and I don't know. I'm interested actually to see how Saka is if Havertz goes back in that team. I'm really intrigued to see how that materialises his game, because for me, when you bring a striker into the club, yeah, right, you bring in the striker into the club. You bring the striker into the club to play to their strengths, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are putting the ball in the back of the net. Do you know what I mean? So for me, every striker that's come into this club prior to like even like Gyökeres coming in, we pretty much we played to their strengths. You look at the grades: Ian Wright, Thierry Henry, Nicholas Anelka, Robin van Persie, even players like Emmanuel Adebayor, mate, who scored loads of goals for us in set. Like, do you know what I mean? We all play to their strengths. We play to how they play to score the goals. But I look at this team now, and I think the wingers for me and that attacking player in midfield have got to deliver so much more, so much more. And I'm just interested.
I never remember on that, Smugs. I never remember them sort of saying, you look at someone like Bergkamp, but because you had a season of Anelka where we scored like 25, 26 goals and we sold him, but obviously Ian Wright, I was so excited to play with Dennis. Dennis just used to come to ask me, where did I like to see the ball? And Dennis, I like to see the run on the outside or the loop. I must have watched the Ian Wright interview 100 times. Do you know what I mean? So, and he's like, and I want to see the ball. He goes, all right, cool. You just make the runs. I'll find you, And then he would have had a season with Anelka. He must have adapted his game, because Anelka scored 25 goals and then went off to Madrid. And then Henry comes in. And then Henry, all right, it takes him 4 or 5 months to get going or whatever. But I think he still scored 18 and 19 goals in his first season, And he still had, and within that time frame, he still had Pires, Ljungberg, Wiltord, Overmars. He had loads of players who went on at Arsenal and had like successful periods of scoring like 12, 13, 14 goals a season, and even mate, Ozil went from supplying Ronaldo and Benzema and put 130 goals in Giroud's career at Arsenal,
Yeah.
And and Walcott was still scoring 10 or 12 a season then. Then he gets Sanchez coming. He scores 20, 25 a season. I mean, Sanchez scored 80 goals in 4 years at Arsenal. So he was a 20-year average guy. Well, he's 1 in 2, basically. I think he was 80 and 165. I looked the other day, right? So, players like that have been able to adapt their game. I don't know whether it's a threshold perspective on technical levels of an Eza or an Odegaard as to whether they can or can't. But the manager doesn't seem to want to allow them to. Because I come back to Gyökeres, mate, because it's a head scratcher. I don't understand how someone can score. He scored 20. Thing is, people keep saying, "Oh, he scored the goals in the Farmers League." Well, he scored 16 goals in 19 games in Europe in the last 2 seasons. So can't call that a Farmers League. And he scored 17 goals in 30 games for his country. So if you add all those together, that's like 33 goals in 55 games for like European competitions and countries. So he is still like a 1 in 2, better than 1 in 2 striker in competitions that we do respect. And he still scored 20 goals in the Championship when he was a kid. And because I think he won the Golden Boot for Coventry that year, they went to the playoffs or whatever. So, funny enough, I was actually talking to my PT out here because he played for Coventry. He's a bit older than Gyökeres, but he still had mates there who were coaching. They thought this kid's like a proper beast. They were like, he could go all the way, sort of thing. But you can't, for me, Smugs, you can't go from 50 goals a season to being rubbish. I'm just not having it, mate. I'm just not having it. Like, it doesn't, like, the game don't work like that. Like, Jesus' best season was 14, at City. He scored like 11, 12 a season in all comps at Arsenal. It transpires a little bit, What was the other point I was going to make? One of these football things was knocking Gyökeres the other day about, this point last season he had 22 in 26. Now he's got 7 in 26 or whatever, struggling. And I just replied to that tweet and asked Grok, what was his XG at this point? And his XG was 22.1 to the same point that he had 24 goals. And his XG now at Arsenal's like 8.1. So, like, what are we kind of doing here? Do you know what I mean? Like, where's the flaw? I just, it's all these clever things like Marino as skipper and Marley coming on and X, Y, Z. And, mate, you've spoken so much to me about Lewis Skelly in the last week or two. And I think you should have your say about him. Like, I wonder, is it a new I wonder if he's another one from Edu. Edu seems to curse players, mate, with these new contracts because he gave Nketiah a 5-year deal at 100 grand a week, and he just went to crud. He's done the same thing with Nelson. He gives Nwaneri 100 grand a week, and everyone's getting frustrated he's not playing, even though I'd be gutted if we sold him. I think he's such a good player. I'd genuinely be happy for Nwaneri to take Odegaard's minutes, and just create a space in the squad there. I really would. I think he's that good. And he's give Lewis Skelly a 90 grand a week pay rise. And ever since they've done this new pay rise, Lewis Skelly can't get nowhere near the team. Mate, and you mentioned it when he come on against Villa, but I even thought Sunday, mate, against Portsmouth, I thought the right winger at Portsmouth, mate, proper had his card marked as well, if I'm being honest with you.
I just think with Lewis Skelly, he's just not good enough to play that position. And Arteta has to go over the line. And Arteta can't rely on him whatsoever. And that's why I was absolutely shocked that he didn't bring Ben on against Liverpool. Because you can rely. You know what you're going to get with Ben White. Do you know what I mean? You know what he's going to give you 120%, but he can defend. He's a defender. Lewis Skelly is not a defender. Do you know what I mean? Lewis Skelly is a centre midfielder who was converted back there to do a shift when obviously things happened last year. Look, he progressed really quickly. He got picked in the England team. He scored obviously on his debut. All positive things by mind you. But with Lewis Skelly, he's gone backwards this season. There's no surprise he's gone backwards because for 2 reasons. Firstly, because obviously we brought other left backs in and who are a much better level than him because they are defenders. but also that he's not getting the game time. Then when he is going in, he's just being chucked in left, right, centre. For me, a loan for him would be absolutely ideal. But the issue we've got here is we can't loan him out because all our defenders are injured, and we're now going back into the situation where we're going to have to rely on him. And it looks like tomorrow, after everything I said about what I didn't want him starting tomorrow, that if actually Saliba's out, we've got an issue again. Do you know what I mean? Because potentially either, for me, Ben or Tim must go centre back tomorrow, Gabriel. If that happens, like I know Norgard has done well against obviously teams of Portsmouth's calibre, but there's no way that I want Norgard playing centre back tomorrow night at Stamford Bridge. So for me, either Ben or Tim has to go centre back, then one of us go right back, and then you look at it, well, there's only one other option at left back now, which is Lewis Skelly. So he's probably going to go in the team tomorrow night, and then you see he's going to have a Neto on him tomorrow night, and Neto's going to do exactly the same thing to him that all these other fullbacks have been doing. Like he got really exposed against Michael Elise against Bayern Munich, and it was tell at that point where the level is, where he is in that position to where obviously a Michael Elise is into his position. And I do feel sorry for him because I really like him. I do really. It's not that I dislike him. I really like him as a personality, and I think he'll be a top player in years to come. But I think at the moment, I don't want to happen is for him to be put into a position where he costs us, because we know what the fan base is like, and it can it can get volatile at times. So for me, obviously, the sooner we can get Calabria and Hincapié back, the better, personally. But yeah, it is frustrating. It is frustrating for him, but he's just not at the level, mate. And we have to be honest about these things. In terms of Nwaneri, like I thought he had a really, really good game on Sunday, by the way, against Portsmouth. Like, I know we've got a question going later, so I'm not going to hit into that question just yet. But I thought, do you know the one thing I thought about Nwaneri is that actually every time he's been asked to play, he's always looked positive. He come on against Leeds when Odegaard went off injured. He looked positive. He come on against Forest when Odegaard got injured. He looked so positive. He come on against West Ham. He looked positive. He come on against Club Brugge. He looked so positive. And he looked positive the other night. And actually, when you think about all our really good performances at the Emirates in the last year, Nwaneri's been a big piece to quite a few of them performances, mate. Like, even when you see what he did when he come on against Manchester City when we beat him 5-1.
Yeah.
Like, this is a guy
scored a great goal.
He's not been given no opportunities from Mikel Arteta. And he's probably the one, in my opinion, that could be rightly aggrieved at the moment, because actually, every time he's been given an opportunity, 9 times out of 10, he's done a job. He's done an absolute great job. And I just question how much longer can you hold him back? Because he's going to be a top player. A top player. And he's not one guy that you want to lose whatsoever. And yet again, I think Arteta's so fearful at the moment that he has to get over this season, that he's forgot about players Nwaneri's level and ability. And I don't think Nwaneri's let him down whatsoever once this season.
Well, I think the difference is, though, Smuggs, is that he's picking players that are... I don't think there's a technical level difference between Odegaard and Nwaneri. I don't think... I think it's pretty close, especially if you add Eze into the mix.
Yeah.
But he picks Odegaard. This whole narrative that he picks Odegaard because he's his club captain, I'm not having it. You know, he picked Marino to be his captain on Sunday. Look, you've made a great point with Gabriel as part of the management team on the pitch. So I, for me, I'm not sure about that one. But I think Odegaard is more efficient in his defensive duties, and he covers the turf, and he's really good in his press and stuff like that. So I think, I think that's the reason why he gets in ahead of the other two. But I agree with you, mate. I think he reminds me so much of, like, he's a bit of a hybrid of a Wilshere and a Nasri. Like, he travels with such a low centre of gravity. He's quite happy with receiving the ball on both feet. He pops the ball around the corner and gets moving. He just looks, as he gets older. He also, mate, for me, you've probably seen it live in the stadium with him. He looks to me like to have a real burst of pace, like he's got acceleration in his first two steps.
Yeah.
where he could just get past a man, and I think Odegaard misses that. Özil had that as well. He used his body a bit more than have the pace, because he was so clever at feinting. I think as a number 10, when you're trying to create space or disrupt shapes, you need that. And something obviously Eze is so good at. He looks so nonchalant on the ball, but yeah, I think we'll have to see, mate. Tomorrow night. The other part of my question that's taken me about half an hour to ask you was, what would your 11 be for tomorrow against Chelsea?
I'm sorry, something down my throat. Well, it's kind of changing now, isn't it, with the news? Obviously, early on. So if I'm going with the news, yeah, right, that what we're hearing about Saliba and Trossard, then I think I'm going Kepa in goal because he's got goalkeeper and he has to play, in my opinion, because that's pretty much it's it's not a ruling, but it is a ruling. Do you know what I mean? So Kepa in goal. I would go Timber right back. I would play Ben centre back with Gabriel because I just remember Ben and Gabriel, mate. Do you remember at Liverpool a couple of years ago when they drew 0-0 in the semi final? I think I'd go that. I think I'd go Ben centre back, and I'd have to go Skelly left back because there is nothing else.
No.
It's a worry, but there is nothing else. The only option you've got is to play Timber left back, Ben right back, and play Norgard centre back. But for me, that can't happen tomorrow night. Like the guy is not a centre back. Do you know what I mean? He's done well. He's done absolutely superbly well when he's been put there. But this is a different animal tomorrow night. So for me, you need to play players that have proper played centre back. So I'm going to have to go Skelly. Then centre midfield, I think he just picks. I think he picks his first choice, mate. I think he'll go Subamendi, Rice, and Odegaard. And then I think Martin. I would have picked Martinelli just for what he did on Sunday. I think, how can you drop a player after scoring that trick? Now, that's easy me saying that when he dropped Madueke after scoring 2 goals and didn't even bring him on against Wolves, which is another sort of subject, but we'll leave that one. But yeah, I'd have played Martinelli anyway, just because what he did, and he's confident. Obviously, Saka will play on the right, and Gyökeres up front.
Okay. Yeah.
What, is there any changes for you there?
Well, I wouldn't. You know how I feel about Ben White. The only saving grace I'm going to give Saka as to what would improve his game is I think Saka would improve if Ben White was playing right back. I don't think Timber actually does. I've seen enough games now. I don't think Timber does any favours for Saka at right wing. I think Ben White does a load of dirty work. I think he's technically really, really sound. He takes up good positions in the triangle with Odegaard and Saka, but he does so much dirty work on the overlap, going beyond his winger, which I think he gives Saka like that little bit more space where he can be really clinical. So I would play White at right back. Timber is a centre half. I would probably play Timber with Gabriel.
Yeah.
And I'd play Lewis Skelly at left back. I don't mind if it's Raya or Kepa. Kepa played Sunday. It's his old club. Hopefully there's no emotion there. But I agree with you, he's the cup keeper and he deserves to keep his shirt. Yeah. He actually made a pretty good save on Sunday as well. Then in the midfield, I think he'll play Rice and Zubamendi. I'd probably play Eze, to be honest. I'd like to see Eze play. And yeah, then probably it'd be tough for me to be tough. It's tough to drop Martinelli. I think I'd play actually Martinelli because Lewis Skelly's going to play left back. I'd probably play Martinelli left wing, Gyökeres and Saka. I think Martinelli, just with his pace and recovery, will just give Lewis Skelly like a little bit more cover if he gets caught out of position. So I'd probably do that.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be interesting. I think if he's going to make a decision on the centre back, I think he will go Timber centre back personally, like what you've said. I'd be quite interested to see how that kind of works out. And obviously we're going to have a good bench. Like I would like to see Eze start personally. I don't see it though, because Odegaard's his man. And then we look, mate, and then only 3 days later we got an away game against Nottingham Forest. So obviously 4 away games in 10 days, which is apparently a first for anyone, in 4 different competitions. And you look at that Forest game as well, and you're just praying, aren't you, really, that there's no injuries that come out of this game, really.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah.
So, yeah. Look, I think obviously we're getting near the end of the show, and we still got the Ask Jim segment, so we'll pretty much kick into that now and
Yeah.
go through the questions. I've obviously fired over to you very late in the day today, so thank you very much, guys. First question I've got from Margaret Sheldon. Do you think it's time to question about the amount of injuries? Something must be causing it other than just pure bad luck.
Yes, good question. I think we've pulled this up a little bit in the and thanks, Margaret, for your question. No, you're always a regular listener. I think it's something that we've mentioned in previous shows. I think to put some to shed some light on it, my biggest concern is actually the number of what was referred to as non-impact injuries, so muscles or hamstrings or injuries that are caused outside of the impact of a tackle. And I don't think we've had an impact related injury yet this season, or we've had one or two out of like the 30 injuries that we've sustained. You know, like for an example, it was confirmed today it was a muscle injury on Calafiori, who got injured in the warm-up of a game like 3 or 4 games ago, and he's going to be like a few weeks away from returning. What have you done that's so intense, like 45 minutes to an hour before a game's kicking off? So I must say, in the last 2 years, I think that the workload for a professional footballer at the elite level has got significantly out of hand, and like there is an expectation now of a footballer who plays for a really good club like an Arsenal to play around 70 games a season if you include the country, and then over and beyond that, then games now like half lengths because of the injury time and the VAR and stuff. Like halves are now like a first half can often be 48 to 50 minutes long, and then the second half can often be 48 to 52 minutes long. So games are like 10 minutes longer. Well, over the course of a 60 game season, that's another 600 minutes. That's like another 6 games if you add all that up together. And then the stop starting, like when the weather's like it is when it's cold, and if you're waiting for a VAR decision, it could take 3 minutes. Your body can seize up. It's no good to like stop and start either. So I don't think football does it any favors, but I do also think the high level of injuries that we're having and the recovery time, Smugs, is probably the big one for us. Do you know no one's ever out for a week and they come back, and it like always like, oh, we think it's a niggle, but they're out forever, you
Yeah.
know? And
Yeah,
that's
no,
just the only one
so
that looks
painful.
like a bit of a, you know, that one for me is also just I don't think we get players back quick enough. But yeah, great question, good start.
Second question is from Martin from Class 30 Clocks. In over 50 years of supporting the Arsenal, there have been many highs and many lows along the way. Personally, the biggest lows have come at moments that I consider to be lost opportunities. We should have gone on to win the league in 2016 after our last gasp win against Leicester. We should have at least won one Premier League title in recent seasons, but I think our biggest disappointments have come in the Champions League. Obviously, the standout for most Gooners in the final is 2006. But for me, the worst occasion was the Invincibles lost to Chelsea in the quarterfinals in the 2004. What was your lowest moment as an Arsenal fan?
In the ground, I've never felt as low as I did when we were 2-0 up at home to Spurs and we lost 3-2, and Raphael van der Vaart had like
Yeah.
we made Raphael van der Vaart look like an icon of the game for 45 minutes. And I remember standing at Tottenham Hale Station, like near the track, thinking, what has just happened to my life? Like we were cruising at 2-0. Like that was crazy. So just that feeling, like that was like nearly 20 years ago, and I remember that vividly, like it affects me. But I would actually agree, because not only was the one that you've just mentioned, the 2004, which I think is when Wayne Bridge scores and we lose 3-2, like that was a dreadful week for us, because we went out of the FA Cup in the same week, and that That was the week. That week where we went out the FA Cup the same week, Bridge scored across the face to goal, and I think also a title challenge. It was that. Do you remember that week of doom we had, Smuggsy, where we played Chelsea in Champions League,
Yeah.
and Bridge scored, and we lost our FA Cup game, and I think also something happened in the Premier League. We were
I
gone
think,
from like looking like we could do a treble, and we ended up winning nothing.
yeah, I think it was the Henry moment against Carragher, weren't it? Kind of dug us out of a game that we looked like we was going to lose, weren't it, on the third game of that spin?
Yeah, and that feeling's like never gone away from me, because with that Arsenal team, with Wenger in that ilk, and you can look like you're going to win everything and you can't. It just shows how football can be quite mysterious and quite cruel. So where we are now, and people are like talking about a quad. I'm like, yeah, you need to like really slow your horses down here, because we ain't won nothing for 6 years. Winning does breed winning, and even when you're winning, you can not be winning. So, yeah, that moment there. But I don't know why. It's a really interesting question. Something incredibly personal to me was um, was that Rafael van der Vaart. Yeah, it was like the last kick of the game. He puts a free kick on the angle. I can't remember the name of the defender. I can see his face. Like, he wore number 6, black French guy, scored a header, like skimmed off his
Oh
head.
yeah, I know the one you're on about. Oh, what's his name?
Looked a bit like Gallas, but it wasn't
Yeah,
Gallas. Like,
yeah.
um,
Now, is it start with N? Oh, I don't know.
I don't know, mate. I've tried to block it out of my head, but I can't.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly. I don't really want it back in my mind.
yeah.
Kabul.
Cabal, Eunice Cabal.
That was him.
Yeah, mate, get on that, Smugsy. That's insane from you.
Yeah, just
top,
literally come to my head just then, mate.
top draw.
Prudy, do you think it's a real possibility we might get Mark Gray either in January or a summer transfer? If so, who are we losing out the back line? Because I can't understand where he slots into the current team unless Mosquera is heading out on loan. I know what I think, but I'll let you answer it.
Well, look, I think you need 4 really good centre halves. So if he does come in, I don't think it necessarily means one leaves, but I'm not. We are due. It's a good question, Prudy. Right? We are. My favourite question so far. This, because it's good. You've got to think about it. We are due a high-profile sale. Yeah, we have not had one in this Arteta era, where someone in a good part of their career, in a good phase, gets sold for proper big money, and people have to feel a bit uneasy about, was that good money, or have we let one go there? So that's just evolution, like, and if you look at City, you've carried on winning. They've done it. They've lost company. They brought in Diaz. Like, they've got X1. Like, they've lost Stones. They've got Gvardiol. Like, these things are natural byproducts of just how football works. So I would not be surprised if one of Gabriel or Saliba leaves. I know Saliba's just signed a new contract. I think the minute we win a trophy, Saliba is thinking about Real Madrid. Now, Real Madrid have not won anything again. They've just sacked Xabi Alonso, and he might be looking at that thinking, "Ugh, all right, that's a bit unstable." So maybe that does us a favour. The first time around where we kept hold of Fabregas from Barcelona, that happened. And we kept him for another year, maybe 2 years, and then he did go. So that thing won't run its course. I'm not convinced that Gabriel will stay forever either. I also think, Smugsy, that there would be a chance that maybe we do sell Lewis Skelly, if I'm being honest, and he might go to another club and play midfield for him. So, if Guay's an option, he might be the best value free transfer that we could get our hands on in God knows how many years. It is like a Sol Campbell Mark II. It's very rare you get a player of that quality, that used to London, who's that close to you, who you can sign for a free transfer. But yeah, so I think it'd be more about a momentum based thing about, can you do the deal, more so than the needing to. We've got such a good squad now. I'll make this final point, Smuggsy, let you have yours. We've got such a good squad now. I genuinely think any transfer, unless it's like Mbappe or Haaland level, people could make an argument about, because our squad is so good now. That is credit to Arsenal. But I love the fact that we can talk about bringing in like really top quality players, and people are like, oh, I wonder where he's going to fit in. Like, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, like as I said to you, I think like it's quite easy, really. I think when you look at the top four centre backs we could have, it will be Gabriel, Saliba, Guehi, and Mascara. And now I just think Calavori and Ngapi can play there, but they'll bat it out for left back. And then you've got your players batting out for right back. I don't think Skelly will be seen as a left back long term whatsoever. So I think there's definitely scope for that transfer to happen. Don't necessarily think someone has to come out of that team at the moment for it to happen. I just feel that it will need to be a reinforce in terms of obviously positional sense, in terms of where players are going to play. But for me, it's a no-brainer, mate. Get him in the club. Free transfer. Do you know what I mean? Like you said, it's Sol Campbell Mark II.
Yeah, exactly.
Next question is from Andy. He is saying, at which point do we start to question Eze? We can't keep saying he needs time. He costs a lot of money to bring us something different and special. Spurs and Palace aside, it's beginning to concern me. We have huge cup games coming up, and right now I'm not sure I can trust him. On Sunday, one area outshone him. Even looked hungry and wanted to showcase himself. Didn't get the same feeling about Eze.
Yeah, look, I think that's slightly harsh. I think he's been, the expectation around fans is a bit similar to the Gyökeres story now, that players just come in immediately and they just like hit the ground running. It's just a bit bizarre to me. That's no disrespect to his opinion. I totally respect it, but I think at the same token, talking about a player who, largely has come to his boyhood club, he's returned. He scored a hat-trick against Tottenham. Look, there is no more perfect thing that you can do as an Arsenal player than scoring a hat-trick on your North London derby debut. Like, you dine out on that for a decade, if he wants to. I don't think he will, but I think he is being bedded into a system again where he was the standout maverick player and everything flowed through him at Crystal Palace. And then he's been asked to play a different style of football here. He's floated from the left to central. You and I both noticed at the Fulham game where he had to have that run in the team where Odegaard was injured and he was playing more in a right 10 and he was still doing good things on the ball, but we just said he looked uncomfortable because he was receiving the ball on the wrong half turn. So he wants to be receiving the ball in the left pocket moving in more so than the right pocket moving out. But all in all, he's had some great moments. Like, he made a fantastic pass through to Martinelli to score against Man City. He made a great pass through to Martinelli to score against Bayern Munich. The hat-trick against Man City. He scored his opener against Port Vale. So I think he's got like nearly 10 GA for Arsenal already. So he's just quietly going about his business and doing his work, and whilst bedding into a new team. He's been a massive signing. He's taken the number 10 shirt, and he's only human, So I think Eze's done fine. I would like to see him play more, and I'd like to see him play in a team where he's got the shackles off and he can like properly drive at an opposition, and then hopefully we see the best of him.
I said on the show last night that I was on that I actually believe people at Eze been brought in the club as well, like as cup specialist players as well. Like, I can see him playing in all the cup games pretty much because it suits him and Martinelli just suits him down to a T, doesn't it? In terms of obviously teams have got to come out us more, and when teams got to come out us more, we see what happens with players like Martinelli. So I do see him starting a lot more. I would like to see him involved in the Champions League as well because I think he'll offer something totally different, especially when we get to the two-leg stages and all that. When teams have really got to open up. So, like you said, I think there's a lot to look forward to with Eze. And I just think he's getting started.
Yeah.
Next question from sorry, I just got lost there. Yes, next question from John. Does Victor start on Tuesday? And if he doesn't, will that affect his confidence more, or is it a question of giving him more time and we'll get to see him getting back to before he was injured against Burnley, as there is definitely a goal scorer in there? Sorry, he must have meant Wednesday instead of Tuesday.
Yeah. Look, I think that he's still Arteta's number one starter in games like this. It is still a cup match on Wednesday, so there is a possibility he doesn't start. He might go with Jesus. I think he'll get minutes one way or another against Chelsea, but I don't know, if I'm being completely honest. I really don't, because I find the narrative around Gyökeres so toxic now. I really don't know whether or not it's affecting Arteta one iota or a lot. So what was different was that we played Sunday. Both Havertz and Jesus both got minutes, so he is the fresher of the three, just by math. But they might prefer him for the weekend because we've got another tough league game, and he's been, our league record when he's on the pitch is pretty good. So, yeah, I think he should still start all games. Basically, I think he should carry on playing. I think the team need to adapt to him. I think, just on your point there, Smuggsy, about Martinelli and Eza being really effective in cup games, I hold Gyökeres in the same ilk. I think if a game is opened up with 20-25 minutes to go and like the opposition are pushing, I think that's when he could be his most clinical. If we can get him in positions where he can strike the football, I think he'll be deadly. But we just haven't been able to actually do that yet, and see. Oh no, he's got a few shots off, hasn't he? Obviously against Forest, he does the 1-2 with Eze, then he dribbles across the pitch. Madueke puts him in. He hits the apex of the goal. You were probably in the stands at the time. I think the goal was shaking for about 5 minutes. He had the one against Leno, where Saka slips him in down the side and he rips it against his chest, and like Leno sort of loses his breath. So when he's had a chance to strike the ball, he's not scuffing it and sending it over the bar. He's not. He tends to hit the target and make the keeper make a save. So yeah, fingers crossed. He just keeps playing. 'Cause I think the minute he scores once or twice in a row, Smugs, don't you think he'll just go on a run?
Yeah, absolutely. I do think he will, mate. I do think he will, but I think he needs, don't get me wrong, give him a penalty all day long, but I don't think that's what he needs. He doesn't need a tap in either from a yard out. What he needs is either a massive moment where it's a big goal to win a big game. He just needs a proper clean strike as well, don't he? He just needs something or a clean header, mate. Do you know what I mean? Something that's going to fly into the top corner just to get him buzzing, mate. Because you know what happens, mate. They're like London buses, isn't they? When one comes along, mate, there's about 3 or 4 behind them. And I do think that's what happened with him.
Yeah, I agree.
Got John Brooks saying, if we did decide to sign another striker, who do you think it should be?
I just don't think we need Haaland. We don't need to sign a striker. This is I'll just be crystal clear. We do not need to sign a centre forward. Having goals in our team is not the issue. Yeah, it's about creating the opportunities for our strikers to score. That is it. If Gyökeres and Havertz, in a month's time, are both 5 or 6 xG and they've got a goal each, then we'll definitely have this conversation again. But it is not the case. Yeah, we are not putting our number 9s in proper clinical goal scoring situations. So until we've done that, it's creativity is the issue, not the other way around.
No, I do totally agree with you. I agree with you. I think at the moment we've got enough forwards to kind of bring in. I think if we're looking to bring someone in the attacking role, it's going to be on the left wing moving forward. So, look, we've got Gyökeres, who's a proven goal scorer, and we've got Havertz as well, who's coming back, who I think is going to be a big plus to the team. I think Jesus just rotates around the front three. He'll be a player that probably come on in games and impact games. But, yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I don't think another forward is absolutely what we need to be looking at right this moment.
Yeah.
Got a question from Ross White. if, and I mean if, we come up empty-handed this season, where do you think we'll need to invest? Also, should we play a front two of Havertz and Victor?
Well, there's two-part question. I do think that Gyökeres and Havertz should play together, but I think Havertz should be in the kind of old mold of a shadow striker, you know, like a Berbatov or a Bergkamp or somebody of that ilk, you know. And then you can still have two wide players off him. But if you want me to be honest, where we need to invest, my honest view of that is buying the best manager available on the market, which at the moment would be Luis Enrique, Hansi Flick, or Jurgen Klopp. So that would be that would be my opinion. Like I honestly, I think people don't understand, Smugs, how good our squad is. You know, like in our last game against Liverpool, Nwaneri, Dauman, Havertz, Calafiori, and Mascara, like none of them were in the match day 20, and our bench was like Kepa, Norgard, um, Jesus, Trossard, or Martinelli. Mate, it was insane. Like Eze, it was, you know, it was like it was the 25 available to him if he can keep players fit. Oh yeah, look on Liverpool. The subs were Norgard, Madwakey, Marino, Lewis Skelly, Kepa, White, Jesus, Eze, Martinelli, and there was no Havertz, no Dauman, no Calafiori. You know, it's like mental, mate. You know, it's like absolutely crazy. Like the players that weren't there. So we don't need players. Like we just need to get over the line.
Yeah, no, absolutely, totally agree. We do need to get over the line. That is what it's about now. Um, I'm not, no disrespect to G's question, but I feel that you've already answered it on the show. I'll let you know what it was. But it was just basically asking us how to get the best out of Gyökeres, which you've obviously discussed in quite full tonight. So
Yeah.
don't repeat that one. Got a question from Andy. Jim, I appreciate our tactics and I trust Arteta. However, I still think football can accommodate a fast break and catching a team cold. Do you feel that Arsenal playing a slow game constantly when it's riddled when it is riddled with electric players who could dismantle a side with speed?
So do I think that Arsenal don't play to the strengths of its players with speed? Is that kind of basically the crux of it?
Yeah. Do
Yeah,
you
look,
feel that our team will be best playing off the counter attack with
yeah.
speed?
Well, so it's not necessarily the counter attack. Fundamentally, like we have the ability to pick up the ball in the double pivot, where both players play on the half turn, and the advanced number 8 drops in the pockets. They play a reverse triangle. So more often than not, that's Odegaard who likes to pick the ball up deeper. So when you do that, that's normally to transition the ball quicker and like so we we need to play on transition quicker, not necessarily counter. Like yes, you should counter teams when you're defending corners or possession or you're turning possession over, which is where Rice is most clinical when he turns possession over quickly. But where we need to and I believe this is coached that they don't do this because there is a point where you turn the ball over and they do not recycle it quickly. So it's more about regaining possession and shape, which allows obviously the opposition to regain shape. But we need to be way more effective in transition. Madwakey is rapid. Gyökeres is quick. Martinelli is rapid. Hincapi is really quick. You know, we Havertz has done loads of speed work. He's quick now as well. So that Saka's not slow. He's no dog. So would need we absolutely can play through the lines in transition significantly quicker to utilize that and break teams down. It's just the manager has to allow them to do it. At the moment, they're coached not to do that. They play conservative, territory orientated possession football and play into pockets of space where the data suggests that we are the most effective from, which is the left and right channel in the final third of the pitch, and from dead ball scenarios like i.e. corners and free kicks and throw-ins within the width of the 18-yard box.
Cool. A message from John. Now we're getting our injured players back into the squad. Do you see us going on and winning the league, or are you still hesitant? I guess you're hesitant still for a few factors.
I am hesitant, because until it's done, it's not done. That dropping the 8 points with 6 games to go a couple of years ago was like a proper battle scar, and I do think we should have won the league in 2016 as well. So this is like the hardest competition in football to win, in my opinion, the Premier League. It is it is not done until statistically it is not done. So I do believe that we have all of the attributes. I believe our manager is good enough. I know I'm picking holes in him, but I do believe he is good enough. He needs to tweak his strategy, but he is good enough. The squad is absolutely good enough. The facilities are top class. So, and the fans have been so patient. Like the match day going fans have been in and amongst them multiple times. They are so patient and so willing and so supportive of the team in the last 2 years. I've really turned the Emirates into a fortress. So, and Smuggsy, you can probably resonate that the most because you're there every week. So, everything's there for him to do it, John. Just got to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Just got to get over the line, mate, and just get the job done. Do you know what I mean? Got 2 more questions, but I'm going to work it down to one because it's the same, obviously, guy and Nick. Sorry, I've just kind of lost it quickly. Let me go and try and find it again. Do you have any concerns about any of the players at present? And if so, who are they?
Yeah, I have concerns about Saka. I believe his decision making and his general kind of on pitch aura is off. I think he's become quite selfish. I think he's become quite dismissive of his teammates. And I think his decision making has been poor this season. I think that in the last month, very, very quietly, Timber's performances are lacking a little bit of edge, and I think he's burnt out, and I'm concerned about that. I don't think he's been as frugal and as decisive going forward. And I do think Saka might benefit. I think he played his best football with Ben White at right back, so I think you should look at that. I'm obviously concerned with Gyökeres because for whatever reason they're not giving him any service, and I think if that continues like long into the rest of the season, like April, May, it will start getting quite disruptive when every single game matters. So I think they need to fix his goal contributions stuff by the end of February. And other than that, I don't really have any other. I tell you, the other one I would have is I have a bit of a concern about Calafiori's and Saliba's injury record. Saliba he seems to get a niggle every 3 weeks, Saliba. And if Calafiori gets injured, he seems to be injured for a long time. I still can't in my head work out how a muscle goes in a warm-up and you're out for like 8 weeks. That is just weird. So that's me being like super pernickety, but that's a full assessment of everyone.
Cool. I've got one other question from George, and he says, "What positive aspect do you think Kai Havertz returning offers from injury?"
Well, I think he'll lift the squad. I think he's a massive game player, George. I think he is he's our biggest big game player. I think Havertz has done everything in the big moments. I think he's been good for us in the big moments. So I think he will have a role to play when we go into the business end of all four of these competitions. I think technical levels in and around the edge of and the final third of the pitch of the box of the opposition, he is very, very comfortable with the ball back to goal or facing forward or 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 in possession when he's kind of under pressure. So I think he'll have a really positive outlook on the team there. I think if they can play him in and around the pocket, I think he'll create for lots of people around him. I really would like to see. I really, really would like to see him play with Gyökeres. I'd also really like to see him play with Martinelli. I think he pops off and creates an angle on the reverse ball. And I think Martinelli's quite good running onto the ball in that kind of Henri slot where the goal opens up and he can side foot it into the far corner. So, yeah, I think there's so much that Havertz will add. And also defensively, he's very astute. Not forgetting he's 6'4". He's very good in the air. He's quite physical. So, yeah, as we get into like the knockout stages of the Champions League, and then also potentially trying to win this League Cup, as well as this Premier League, I think he'll have a big part to play. So, yeah, good question.
Good stuff. And obviously, you will get to choose now your obviously winning question of the night. That would obviously go into our prize draw, which is obviously a ticket to the Emirates to watch an Arsenal game in the second half of the season.
Yeah, this week I think it was Prudy's question. It was really good, so I'm going to give it to that one.
Cool. So congratulations, Prudy. You are now into the draw that will be drawn
next week
after the winner of next week's Ask Jim. So we've got one more week of Ask Jim, and then we'll have everyone in the draw ready for that at the back end of the show next week, and we will confirm who the winner is at the end of the show next week. So yeah, looking forward to that.
And I think, Smuggsy, we were touching on just about as we were finishing up there, 1,000 people listening, mate, live. It said so, like an incredible effort that was. So 971. So thank you for everyone who supported our comeback show. That's like it's incredible.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely brilliant to see. Obviously, we are building week on week, and we have been a bit weary where we haven't been on the show for the last 3 to 4 weeks. So obviously, we don't want to lose you, absolutely incredible guys. So obviously, thank you very much for kind of joining us once again. Obviously, your support to the show, but also the dialogue you put into the chat as well. It doesn't go amiss. So thank you very much. And obviously, we are looking to firstly improve the shows week on week moving forward into 2026. But there was a little bit of big news today, breaking your account, that we might have a big name on soon.
Yes. A very good friend of mine, someone who I have, I've chewed the ear of for many a year. He is a fantastic gentleman, and a very gentle soul, a very good DJ actually, and an absolute Arsenal diehard. So Mr. Jeff Arsenal, ex-player as well, played a really high standard. But yeah, I believe he is on X as at Jeff Arsenal, and he was a really good supporter of what I'd done previously. I mean, years ago we did Burkamp Wonderland podcast together, which is I think nearly into its 700th episode now with Danny and the guys over there, which is crazy, really. So yeah, Jeff and I caught up, and he's going to come on the show, I believe, in the next week or two. Yeah, and also help me kind of track down a couple of old contacts and see if we can get some other interesting parties on here as well. So yeah, no, looking forward to that one.
Yeah, no, some absolutely great news there. So hopefully we'll be able to get that in full focus over the next few weeks. But obviously, Jim, thank you very much for tonight, mate. Obviously, been a few weeks, but obviously loads discussed, and I hope you got a lot off your chest tonight as well, mate.
Yeah, no, definitely good to clear it down. I know you've been keeping me going the last week and saying, "Oh, we'll have a good chat," and I've been effing and blinding at you a bit and sort of like looking at all the data. But honestly, it's it's the same as you, Smuggsy. We've been around the block with it, and 3 decades plus going to the Arsenal. We're also at the end of the day like massive fans, and there is there's a desperation on our side, right, to lift major honours again because it's been so long. So it's difficult to. It's been a bit of a difficult watch in some instances to kind of like watch us dribble over the line in games, but we are still dribbling over the line in games. So long may it continue. What have we got, Smuggsy? We got Chelsea away in the League Cup, and then we've got a weekend game before we get together next Tuesday. So we've got Forest away in the Prem, haven't we?
Yeah, we've got an absolutely busy few weeks coming up, mate. So we've got Chelsea tomorrow night at Stamford Bridge. We've got Forest at City Ground on Saturday at 5:30. Then we go into next week, into Milan in midweek.
Yeah, just before the show.
Yeah, just before the show. And then we got the big rivalry game, Arsenal-Manchester United on the Sunday.
Well, just after the show, sorry. Yeah, so we'll probably finish the show, won't we? And do a bit of team news and assess that live, and then we'll jump off the show and go into kickoff.
Yeah, it'd be quite nice to do that as well, like doing the breaking team news and all that kind of stuff. I think we can kind of maybe platform the show a little bit differently next week to just kind of get a bit of a fever into that game as well, because obviously it is like, look, just be honest, there will be a lot of rotation there, but like we say before, like we'll still go out with a decent team to Milan. You have to, and if we do get a win out there, it pretty much confirms top spot. I know, obviously, we don't read too much into it, but it could confirm top spot on next Tuesday if we do win that game.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, mate. So, all right. Well, look, thank you as always, mate, for hosting. It was really good fun getting together with you as always, and I can't believe we've played 7 matches since our last show.
I know, mate. It was a thick and fast one, mate. Trust me, I was feeling it. Going to all the home games. I think it was like 3 and 6 or 7 days. Yeah, it was kind of hard work, but we got over the other side, kind of.
Yeah, lovely. All right, pal. All the best. I'll catch you next week.
Yeah, you too, mate. And obviously, thank you very much for everyone who has joined today. We'll see you next week, same time, same place, 5:30, up the Arsenal, and let's get the old League Cup win tomorrow on 3 points on Saturday. Good night. What's it gonna